I'm only going to tell you a few things about them because I'm sure Rick will do a much better job than I can. But these four brothers are the only four sons who served together in Vietnam at the same time. And three of them fought in the same battle in Dong Ha. These are four brothers who have traveled America as part of the Band of Brothers. They have traveled 33 cities to get here to Midway, and they have a message of hope for America. Rick Bolanos and his brothers, welcome to San Diego.
Hello, San Diego! You're being filmed right now by a webmaster, and you're going to be on www.veteransforamerica.com. And the entire United States is going to see you. So let's show all of the United States that California wants America back! We've traveled actually for 15 days, and we've made 32 cities in 15 days. We spoke to thousands of Americans who love this country so passionately. I wish I could tell you how passionate they are about the love that they have for this country. My name's Rick Bolanos, and I have the distinction of being a member of a family that had four brothers in Vietnam at the same time. Three of us were actually in combat together in Dong Ha, Vietnam. You're probably sitting there wondering why a family would send four brothers to Vietnam. One is enough, two is one too many, three is a whole bunch, and four is, well, we've heard words like touched. But the truth of the matter is that my dad inculcated in us a deep passion for the United States of America. My dad so dearly loved this, what he used to call the greatest nation on the face of this world. My dad was a poor man from Mexico, and he used to relate to us the fact that he didn't have a pair of shoes until he was 6 years old. He used to carry around a long oak branch, and he said the oak branch was the strongest branch there was. He used it to chase away the rats and the vermins from the trash cans behind the cantinas. And he'd look through them to see if he could find something to eat for his younger brothers and sisters. And when he came to the United States of America, he realized that the streets really were gilded and they were paved with gold. He'd heard all those stories about this great nation. He went to work in Lompoc, California for John Mansville. The first thing that they gave him was a set of keys to the house that he would own while he worked for them, rent-free. And right away he knew that this had to be the greatest nation on the face of this earth. When he opened the doors to the house to move in, the entire kitchen was full of food. And he cried. He says, I sat down and I cried because I knew and understood that in the United States, I'll never starve to death. I can't tell you, he used to say, what a terrible feeling it is to sense the pangs of hunger for 2 or 3 days. It's a pain that you'll never, ever, ever forget. It's a pain that sits at the bottom of your stomach, he says, and it's the worst pain that you could possibly feel. And that from that day on, my dad felt truly and fervently and passionately in love with his country. Every chance that he had, he would wave the flag. Every Memorial Day, Veterans Day, 4th of July, he'd have all 50 flags representing all of the states out there. And he used to drive us up Highway 1, and he'd stand us atop these rocks in our underwear. I don't know what it is with Hispanic parents, but they just love to take pictures of their children in their underwear. And I think they do it to embarrass you down the road. You know, when you're married, they show your wife, Mira, look at your husband. You know, he's real big, but look what he looked like then, you know. But the truth of the matter is that what's important about those pictures, and we have them with us, you can see them if you like. He used to have us saluting. And I don't know what we were saluting. It might have been a pelican flying over. I don't know what. But what was important is that he thought we should be showing our patriotism to the entire world. And that's why he took pictures of us like that. Every picture we have, we're saluting something. I know for a fact that we have the only restroom in the United States of America that when you sat down to rest, you were staring at an American flag. And that was that passion that my dad had for this country. He was so in love with this country. And I remember the day that he asked us to go into the kitchen to talk to us. And I knew something was wrong because he had a tear in his eye. And he came to us and he related those stories about how poor he was in Mexico and how great this nation was. He talked to us about patriotism and liberty. He talked to us about freedom of speech. And he said, if we don't fight this war in Vietnam and fight communism there, we're going to have to fight it right here in the shores of California. And we have to show the United States of America that the Bolanos are patriots too. Somebody from this family has to go and represent the United States and this family. Because, my children, he says, freedom has a price. And the price of freedom is your life. I knew right away that it was going to be my brother Louis, the oldest. And indeed, he said, well, you know, I'll go. I'll go ahead and go. I'm the oldest, and, you know, I'm just going to go. And my dad stepped out of the kitchen, and after a while, after all the tears and the pain that we felt, my brother Benny, all of a sudden, I remember it very distinctly, knocked on the table. He just knocked on the table as hard as he could, and he says, I'm going to. And then Bill said, as he sat back with his arms crossed, and I'll never forget that, he says, you know what, I'm going to go too. And I'd never been apart from my brothers. You know, the four of us had always been very, very close. So I had decided that day that I was going to volunteer also. And together, the four of us have the distinction of being the only family in the United States that had four brothers answer their country's call. And we were cited by President Lyndon Baines Johnson in a letter to our parents for our patriotism. We had an anniversary on October the 8th, something we don't talk about very much, but I want to share this with you. Our family had a casualty in that war, and the casualty of that war was my mother. My brother Ben came back. She was waiting for him to come home, and then he went back for another tour, and I was the last one to come home. And I came home on Friday, October the 7th, and my mom passed away the very next day, October the 8th, and we're just celebrating her death. And I wanted to share that with you because my mother was a true patriot, probably the most patriotic of all of us. My brother Louis joined the United States Navy, and please don't hold that against him. He volunteered for Vietnam and he answered our country's call. My brother Ben joined the United States Marine Corps, certified. He volunteered for Vietnam and he answered our country's call. My brother Bill joined the United States Army Green Berets.
All right.
He volunteered for Vietnam. And I joined the United States Army Airborne. I volunteered for Vietnam. And together we answered our country's call. Recently, we were in New York at the Republican National Convention, raising hell, I don't mind telling you. And I was angered. My passions were inflamed because I saw a bunch of swift boat veterans running around telling the entire United States of America about poor Senator John Kerry. They had a little Band-Aid on their cheek with a purple heart on it. And they sat there and told the entire United States, poor Senator John Kerry, he got wounded by a little tiny piece of shrapnel that was embedded in his thigh, and he gave himself a little Band-Aid, purple heart. And the day that I heard that, I was incensed, and I was so angry, because I ask you, what would they have said to the young Marine that my brother and I saw on Highway 9 as we went up to Quezon? We came under mortar attack, and this young 18-year-old patriot suddenly clutched at his throat. He fell to his knees, and as I looked closer, I saw a stream of blood gushing from his throat. And this young man this young patriot literally had to sit there on his knees and watch himself bleed to death. And when it was all done, when they had put him in his bag, the medic said it was only a small pin-like piece of shrapnel that severed his carotid artery. If that young man had lived, if he had lived and he had run for president of the United States, how would these swift boat veterans and how would this administration denigrate his service? What would they have said about the young Navy corpsman that I saw serving one of our Marines, and he stepped back to pick up his bag, and he stepped on a mine and his leg was blown off just above the knee. And as I rushed to him, he looked at me and he said, "Please give me back my leg." If he had run for president of the United States, what would this swift boat veteran group have to say about his service? And finally, Mac, who I had in my arms in Quantry City during TED, and I held him in my arms and he said, Rick, please don't let me die." And for one instant, I wanted to change my life for his. that I was angry at my Jesus Christ because I didn't have enough hands to stop the bleeding from all of his wounds. If Matt could come back to the United States of America and run for president, what would these despicable, low-life swift boat veterans have to say about him? This administration has not earned the right to denigrate. They haven't earned the right to disparage. And they haven't earned the right to make light of a patriot like Senator John Kerry's service. Because not one of them, not George Bush, not Jeb Bush, not Karl Rove, and not Dick Cheney ever liked this. No one in that administration has ever felt the agony of having a patriot brother die in their arms. Because if they had, they wouldn't be pitting one veteran against the other. They wouldn't be tearing at the very fabric of our patriotism, tearing at the very souls of our loyalty, tearing at the very heart of our patriotism, because they have never, ever served. It's easy for them to put up a smokescreen and talk about things that happened 35 years ago. And it's unconscionable the way they pit one veteran against the other. It's unconscionable the way they treat all of our veterans. Because when you denigrate one veteran's service, you denigrated every veteran's service from the Revolutionary War to the Civil War, to World War I, World War II, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, the Gulf War, and now you're denigrating our very lucky veterans' service and dedication. But it's the smokescreen. They don't want you to see the real issues. They don't want you to hear the truth. They want to talk about 35 years ago, and frankly, I don't give a damn about 35 years ago. I want George Bush to tell me why. It's not an indefensible moral travesty when you've lost tens and not hundreds, and you haven't lost thousands or tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of jobs. You've lost millions of American jobs on George Bush's watch. That is an indefensible moral travesty. It's an indefensible moral travesty when you have the unmitigated gall to tell American people that it's good to export 1 million American jobs overseas. You tell the children of those millions of Americans who've lost their jobs where their next meal is coming from. Because George Bush has refused to extend their benefits. He's refused to give them the opportunity to pay for their homes and to be able to feed their children. And now we have more than 1 million new Americans on the rolls of poverty. 600,000 children on the rolls of poverty. And that, my friends, is an indefensible moral travesty. Blood, sweat, and tears tilling our soils for years and years. Farmers that we've met in Iowa, farmers that we've met in Nebraska, farmers that we've met in Minnesota, losing their farms. And when you shake their hands are like steel, because you can feel the calluses of the work that they put into that earth, toiling for hundreds of years, and now they're losing their farms. And they're losing their farms to the large agribusinesses who now get 2/3 of all the grants and subsidies that should be going to your American farmers. That's an indefensible moral travesty. An indefensible moral travesty when they sit there with that little smirk and say, I'll leave no child behind. I'll leave no child behind. Yet every single city in the United States of America is passing bond issues just to educate our children. It's an indefensible moral travesty when you give the very corporations that are polluting our rivers, that are poisoning our earth, that are poisoning our air, you give them the right to write the new environmental law. You give them the right to write the new environmental law, and they're the ones that are leaving a legacy of poison, a legacy of pollution to your children and my children, to our grandchildren. That is an indefensible moral travesty, my friends. And it's an indefensible moral travesty to talk to our senior citizens, and we've talked to them all over the United States, and they sit there and cry about why they had to sell their homes after 50 years of making payments on that home, the great American dream, and now they have to sell their homes because they have to choose between breaking a pill in half to survive or paying their electric bill to survive. That, my friends, is an indefensible moral travesty. Those are the truths that this administration refuses to let the United States of America hear. They don't want you to hear the truth about this administration, because then they would have to defend the biggest moral travesty of all, George Bush. Who owes you a duty of truth, who owes you a duty of honesty. And he lied. He lied when he said there were weapons of mass destruction. He lied when he said there was a nexus between Al-Qaeda. And he went and attacked the wrong country. He should have stayed in Afghanistan and went after Osama bin Laden. That's an indefensible moral travesty. You can feel the emotion. I want you to inflame your passion. I want you to love America like my father loved America. Love America like John Kerry loves America. We've spoken to John Kerry. We've asked him the hard questions. We've asked him about civil rights. It's important to us. We've asked him about education. We've asked him, how are you going to develop our economic infrastructure again? He's answered us. And he sat there, and when he answered us, he clutched at his heart. And we realized that he loves this country. We realized that when we talked to John Kerry, we were talking to my dad, because he loves this country just as passionately, just as fervently as my dad and the Bolanos brothers do. We want you to rekindle that love for your country. We want you to believe that this is the greatest nation on the face of the earth. And we want you to show all of America that Californians want America back. And finally, my patriot brothers, the unmitigated gall to tell you that if you vote Democrat, you're not a patriot. If you vote Democrat, you're not a patriot. If you vote Democrat, you're not a patriot. You tell them they're a bunch of pin-headed imbeciles. You tell them that you met the Bolanos brothers. Every single one of them answered their country's call. They didn't cower behind a National Guard appointment. They didn't cower behind deferment. They answered their country's call. They are patriotic, and when they vote like yellow dog Democrats. If any one of them ever looks at you and says you're not a Christian, if any one of them looks at you and has the unmitigated gall to say you are not a Christian if you vote for a Democrat, you tell those idiots that they need to read the gospel. They need to read the Bible. They need to read their gospel, because the gospel tells you that when Jesus Christ was brought to Jerusalem, he was brought in on a donkey, not a damn elephant. God bless you for being the patriots that you are. It's your patriotism that continues to defend the conceptual precepts that our democracy and patriotism is built on. Your patriotism. We salute you for your patriotism. Thank you. God bless you. And God bless America.
Today